Shabbat Shalom, and welcome to STI, SUOMI Torah International. Today we have a Torah portion, Kedoshim discussion. Please.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. James, would you like to open in prayer for us?
Sure thing. Heavenly Father, thank you for this wonderful set-apart day, this Shabbat rest that we can gather together in fellowship, reading your word, the word made flesh, seeking and desiring you. We ask that you shine your face upon us this day, that you fill us with your wisdom, your understanding, and your ruach. Let this message be a blessing to all that witness, and that it reach the four corners of this earth. Be with us as we go our separate ways, and fill us and restore us this Shabbat day. We love you and thank you for all the blessings you provide each and every one of us. In your name, Yahusha, amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, John. What I would just like to read, because some people might be joining us that don't understand the Torah portion. So I just like to read a preface from the Parashat, which is from the Sefer. But it says this is a Sefer called the Parashat, which is a collection of the 5 books of Moshe, known as the Pentateuch or the Torah, set forth in weekly reading portions. This reading of the Torah portions is known as the Kirat HaTorah, the reading of the Torah. And each portion is called a parasha, or collectively known as parasha. Each section is named after the opening word or words of the portion found in the Ivrit or Hebrew. The reading of the Torah portions was introduced by Ezra for the public reading following the return of the captivity to Jerusalem about 535 BC. This is described in the Sefer Nehemiah, okay? The reading of the Torah portions has been continuous since the time of Ezra, and most scholars believe that the practice of readings has not changed at all since that time. So I just wanted to put that out to us so that we understand where this comes from, because it will sound strange to the person that hasn't done this before. And although, you know, I know that a number of us have been doing it for years, so, but still, you know, we must consider those that you know, so that they can also understand and where we're coming from. So this week's Torah portion is obviously from starts at Leviticus 19.
You know, so Chris.
Yes.
Kind of interesting that goes right along with that in Acts, so that people realize that this is a New Testament thing as well. In Acts 15, verse 21, it says, "For since ancient times Moses has had those who proclaim him in every city on every Shabbat day, he is read in the synagogues." That's in the book of Acts.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, John. Thank you for that. So it shows you it's not just, you know, it's a tradition, right? And some traditions are very good. So, yeah. And we don't do it because we do it out of the love for the word. I mean, I think we understand that. All right. So in Leviticus 19, let's start off in the first chapter, the first verse. It says, "And Yahweh spoke unto Moshe, saying, Speak unto the all assembly of the children of Yasharel, and say unto them, Ye shall be holy, for I, Yahweh Elohechem, is holy." Now, you know, right there, we can stop and we can go to 1 Peter 3, if we like, 3 to 23. It's a long, but, you know, be holy, because you are called apart, set apart. And that's what this portion is called. It's called the Kedoshim, or the set apart ones. So that's also important to understand. Verse 3 says, "And he shall fear every man his mother and father, and guard Eshma Shabbat. I am Yahweh Elohechem. to me, that was very interesting, John, and the rest of us here, was because to me, it sort of sets a tone between man and man, between man, right? And I'm not talking about, it's a fear of Yah, for sure, but it's also being man or woman. Honoring your parents is the premise. It's a start. It's something that Yah wants us to do, because in that we understand that we love our family, we honor them, and from that, we will not murder, we will not steal, we will not commit adultery, we will not or break wedlock, we will not bear false witness. All of those stem from the fact that you can honor your mother and your father. And I think that's quite an important concept to kind of understand, especially in the Brit or the Hebrew way of understanding it, because the rest of them sort of follow from there. So you will not steal because you honor your parents. You do not want to put them into disrepute. You don't want to hurt their reputation. For instance, that's just, it might be a silly kind of analogy, but that's what I get from it. Turn ye not unto idols, verse 4, nor make yourself molten Elohim. I am Yahweh Elohim. And if ye offer sacrifice of peace offerings unto Yahweh, he shall offer it at your own will. It shall be eaten the same day he offer it, and on the morrow. And if aught remain to the third day, it shall be burnt in the fire. And if be eaten at all on the third day, it is abominable. Interesting, that third day, because we'll get to a third day later on, which is extremely interesting. And it shall be not be accepted. So your offering won't be accepted if you eat of it on the third day. Therefore, everyone that eats it shall bear his iniquity, because he has profaned the hallowed thing of Yahweh. And that soul shall be cut off from among his people. And when he reapeth the harvest of your land, you shall not wholly reap the corners of the field, neither shall you glean of your harvest, that you shall not glean your vineyard, neither shall you gather every grape of your vineyard. You shall leave them for the poor and the stranger. I am Yahweh Elohim. Ye shall not steal, neither deal falsely, neither lie one to another. And he shall not swear by my name falsely, neither shall you profane the name of your Elohim. I am Yahweh. You shall not defraud your neighbor, neither rob him. The wages of him that is hired shall not abide with you all night until the morning. That to me was a very a lovely way of saying it, that, don't withhold the wages, don't keep it for another day. Those people that are working for you in the field, or you can put it the workers, if you will, those people need their money. They need their money to eat, to provide. So give it to them so that they can also be afresh tomorrow when they come to work, not knowing that they've got a heavy heart or that anybody's needing anything back home. Verse 14, you shall not cause death, nor put a stumbling block before the blind, but ye shall fear Elohim, for I am Yahweh. That is a beautiful verse which comes to light a little bit later in our Besorah portion of John, the Gospel of John, which is also very interesting. Ye shall do no unrighteousness in judgment, and you shall not respect the person of the poor, or honor the person of the mighty, but in righteousness shall you judge your neighbor. You shall not go up and down as a talebearer amongst your people, neither shall you stand against the blood of your neighbor. I am Yahweh. So here we can, if you like, we can quickly just go to Proverbs 6, verse 16. And please, if you want to stop me and you want to say something, please be free to do that, because that's what we are about. We like to talk and we like to discuss things. So if we go to chapter 6 of Proverbs and verse 16, it says this: these 6 things Yahweh hates. Yes, 7 are abomination unto him: a proud look, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked imaginations, feet that be swift in running to mischief, a false witness that speaks lies, and he that sows discord among brethren. And I think that's something that, we, especially in our community, might take quite seriously, that that we don't sow discord, that we don't sow that we keep unity. No, let's put it that way. 17, you shall not hate your brother in your heart. You shall in no wise rebuke your neighbor and not suffer sin upon him. You shall not avenge nor bear any grudge against the children of your people, but you shall love your neighbor as yourself. I am Yahweh. He shall guard my statutes, and you shall not let your cattle gender with a diverse kind. That's quite interesting for today, isn't it? With all the GMO. And then after that, you shall not sow your field with mingled seed, neither shall you garment mingled of linen and wool come upon you. I don't know if anybody wants to add to that, James or John.
Well, yeah, we got a lot to talk about now. You read it, so let's do a little talking. How's that?
Okay, great.
Well, we'll just kind of, I don't know how far back I want to go exactly, but let's go back here to I'm sorry, verse 18, right? Do not take revenge or bear a grudge against members of your community, but love your neighbor as yourself. I am Yahweh.
Right.
Now, I have written in there, because I think it applies, is Romans 13. I'd like to read just a little bit of that, starting in verse 8. Do not owe anyone anything except to love one another. For the one who loves another has fulfilled the law, the commandments. Do not commit adultery, do not murder, do not steal, do not covet, and whatever other commandment. All are summed up by this: love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no wrong to a neighbor. Love, therefore, is the fulfillment of the law. So this is a very important aspect. And there's so much in Leviticus 19 and 20 that are brought forward into the New Testament. I mean, it is chock full. And this is just another one of many. And I think that's so important that when people, now we're a group of Torah keepers, right? So when people come and say, oh, you're just, the law has been nailed to the cross. Well, then really what they're saying is love is nailed to the cross. We can live however we want, but this is what we just read in Leviticus. Love your neighbor as yourself. I am Yahweh. That is so important when we're in our walk, when we're going down this way, because it hasn't been nailed to the cross. This is what Yah was from the very beginning. His love, his mercy, his faithfulness, all of those things are from the very beginning, and is reiterated in the New Testament. So there's a couple of hands up, and then we'll go back, because there's a few other things I want to touch on.
Okay. Well, I love that, John, because what was nailed to the cross? In actual fact, love was nailed to the cross.
Right.
you know, so
Yeah,
that never goes away. That's him himself. He's the word, he's
exactly.
the love. Anyway, Andrea.
Yes, in verse 14, it says, you shall not curse the deaf or put a stumbling block before the blind. Reading that on the surface, it's physical, but when we think of those around us who are spiritually deaf and spiritually blind, to be sensitive and kind and in love as we're sharing or living before them, I think is really important. There's so much banging over the head in the Torah community, and I'm new to it, so I mean I just know a little. But
Amen, Andrea. And I think, Andrea, when we get to the Besorah portion, which I think we must go to immediately after just for time's sake, there's a beautiful lesson in that Besorah portion about this exact thing. So I'm very glad you actually raised that.
Yeah, is it
No,
figurative
James.
or is
Sorry,
it
John.
literal, right? That's this idea. I actually wrote that in my Bible as well. Is it literal or figurative? And I think Andrea just hit it right on the head. There's so much here, right?
Yep.
When we're presenting that, are we cursing the person who doesn't hear us? Oh, you're so dumb, you don't get what are we presenting, right? It's so easy to do. Because wait a minute, how many people were saying that about us? Or even in my Christian walk, right? It's so easy to put blame or to lower other people's understanding, you know, and it's so, and I think it applies to so much in that passage too, Andrea. I think it just,
or even
we hit it right there.
Or even to think that we're better.
Right.
I mean, there's an attitude that I think is repulsive and repelling. So walking before people may be more powerful even than what we say.
Yeah, I think you know, this is going to expand quite a bit as we go on in this Torah portion. So I think that's excellent. Thank you, James. Please.
Yeah, that's a wonderful point, Andrea. I really enjoyed that. And I think we can see that all through this chapter 19. I can really see, I don't know if it's appropriate to call them sub-commandments, but whether they are directly part of the 10 commandments or connected to, you know, I kind of see this as Messiah. When he came, he didn't do away with the commandments, but he fulfilled them. He expanded upon them. He maybe took that physical aspect of it and turned it to a spiritual. Not only can you physically sin, but you can do it within your heart and your mind. And so I think a lot of these, you can apply it to that same principle. We're kind of seeing that foreshadowing, I think, through these commandments. And I love verse 18. You shall not avenge nor bear any grudge against the children of your people. Lee spoke on Friday and really brought something to my attention, and it was just a key word that I hadn't really picked up on before. Very famous scripture, the Lord's Prayer, you know, forgive those who trespass against us. And forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those. So it's dependent on how we are forgiving others, which will then be how the Father forgives us.
Yeah. And that's a scary thought, James. I mean, you know, we've got to uphold. There's a standard that we have to uphold. And that standard, look, you know, we fall. For sure we fall. We flesh, right? It wars against the Ruach all the time. But to now get rid of those ill feelings and accept, the love, and then work that out is what we are supposed to be of, you know, the Kedoshim, the set apart ones. That's what we're supposed to be of. And it's you know, it takes time to work those fruits, you know, but work them we do have to do for sure. I think it's anyway. David.
Oh, hey, shalom, shalom. I want to thank everyone for helping me get on this, and and it's really interesting that get on at this particular Torah reading because Yahuwah is the sovereign of the Kedoshim, and as his hand reaching out, as him reaching out through the Kedoshim, that no one perish. He's not willing that anyone perish, but come to salvation. And so the guidelines that he's given us is to love as he's designed us to love. Amen. To break away from the fallen man and to not be double-minded. That's the blending of the, don't let this be blended. Don't let what you wear be blended. Don't blend this. Don't blend that. Well, we certainly don't be double-minded.
Yeah.
And so to war against that, we have to request it to be single-minded, to be moved into the mind of the anointing that passes up fallen man's ability completely. And it's such a privilege to fellowship with an assembly that's seeking that's seeking after Yahuwah and him speaking through you. We're called to die to self and become alive to him, that we have no need that man teach us anything anymore. It's the anointing that teaches us.
Hallelujah.
And when the anointing is present and speaks through any of his assembly, who's speaking? It's Yahuwah Elohim speaking through the new man that's been born from the dead man. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. I'm going to be quiet now for a little while and listen.
Wonderful.
So
David,
just tail end on the tail end of that. So I do want to read just a couple of verses out of 1 Peter,
Please.
because be holy for I am holy, right? That's what it says there. Be holy for I am holy. Verse 22, by obedience to the truth, having purified yourselves for sincere love of the brothers, love one another earnestly from a pure heart, since you have been born again. And then the very last verse of that says, and this is the word that was preached as the gospel to you.
Amen.
That to me is just so important here as we look at that. So
no, that's beautiful. And it leads up to something that I'm going to share with you, which Melissa now, she blessed us with this morning. So let's go from 20 again. And so whoever lies carnally with a woman, with a woman that is a bondmaid betrothed to a man, and not at all redeemed, nor freedom given her, she shall be scourged, and shall not be put to death, because she was not free. And he bring his trespass offering unto Yahweh, unto the door of the tabernacle of assembly. So yeah, once again, right, we're dealing with a physical thing, but we're also dealing with a spiritual thing too, the bond and the free. Then it says, and the priest shall make atonement for him with a ram of the trespass offering before Yahweh, and his sin which he has done, and the sin which has done shall be forgiven him. And when he shall come into the land, and shall have planted all manner of trees for food, then he shall count the fruit thereof as uncircumcised. Very interesting, because that is unclean. And how long? 3 years. It shall be as uncircumcised unto you, and it shall not be eaten of. But in the 4th year, all the fruit thereof shall be holy, to praise Yahweh. Withal is added, right? But so in other words, in the 4th year, you can use the fruit to praise Yahweh. In other words, the offering of the fruit. And then in the 5th year, you can eat. In the 5th year, he can eat of the fruit thereof, it may yield unto you the increase thereof. I am Yahweh Elohim. Well, this becomes extremely interesting if we bring this to the Besorah portion. Well, not to the Besorah portion, but just to the Besorah in general. So we can go to Matthew 3. Let's see what it says here, because this was very interesting to me. In those days came Yehuchanan the immerser preaching the wilderness, crying, sorry, I just missed my part here. Okay, I'm gonna skip this part because I did actually 3:10. Let me just see if it's here, and now activate into the. Okay, listen to what Yahushua says here. It says, and now also in verse 10 of 3, it says here. Well, he's speaking to the parashim, verse 7. He's speaking to the parashim and he's speaking to the Sadokim. And then in verse 9, it says, and think not to say within yourselves, we have Avram to our father. For I say to you that Yahweh is able of these stones to raise up children unto Avram. And in verse 10, and now also the axe is laid unto the root of the trees. Therefore every tree which brings forth not good fruit is hewn and cut down and cast into the fire. Okay, that's the one point about those trees. Second is John 15, Yehuchanan 15. And, sorry, I had this all sorted out and now it's not. All right. It says, I am the vine, and my Father is the husbandman. Every branch in me that bears not fruit, he takes away. And every branch that bears fruit, he purges it, that it may bring forth more fruit. Now ye are clean, though the word which I have spoken, through the word which I have spoken to you. Abide in me, and I in you, and the branch cannot bear fruit of itself, except it is abide in the vine, and no more can he, except he abide in me. I am the vine, and ye are the netzarim. He that abides in me, and I in him, the same brings forth much fruit. For without me, ye can do nothing. I'm not going to carry on reading. We all know that chapter, but it's interesting a connotation between the tree, the branch, and the fruit. Now there's one more that I'd like to quickly go to, and that's Luke 13 and verse 6 to 9. So if we go to Luke 13 and verse 6 to 9, it says, and he spoke also this parable. A certain man had a fig tree planted in his vineyard, and he came and sought fruit thereon, and found none. Then he said unto the dresser of his vineyard, behold, these 3 years I come seeking fruit on this fig tree, and find none. Cut it down. Why cumbereth it in the ground? And he answering, and he said unto him, my Lord, let it alone for this year also. What is that? The 4th year. The 4th year, right? Let it alone for this year also. And I should dig around about it and dung it. So in other words, I'll give it fertilizer. And if it bear fruit, well, and if not, then after that you shall cut it down. And he was teaching in one of the synagogues on the Sabbath. Right, very interesting, because it brings to this tree the 3 years, the 4th year, and after that, the 5th year. So let's look at the first verse of the Bible, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashimayim va'ha'erz. So what does it say? In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Okay, so the et in the middle, the servant lamb, the et with the vav in front of it, the second et in that first verse is the nail. Vav stands for the nail, right? So you got a nail in that et. Yahusha says, I am the et. So when does he come? He comes in the fourth day, the fourth verse, the fourth word rather, which is the 4,000th year of man's existence. So here you have the third, the three before. You don't eat from those fruit. Those fruit are not going to profit you any. But the fourth is a praise unto Yah, because from the fifth he comes and he makes restoration between the heavens and the earth by the nail. Now the fruit becomes very valuable, because now it's the fruit that is given by the power of the Ruach Elohim. Those fruit could not have been given before that. The fruit of the Torah was a very difficult pill to swallow, because it was given in holiness, sure, but it was extremely difficult to keep to. But by the Ruach Elohim coming from Yahusha, we have the ability to live in this. And that is the power that Yah has given us right now. So that to me was an absolute blessing this morning. And I see Lois has got her hand up. Lois, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. What I saw when you read that was 3,000 years he had tarried with the Jewish people, or the Hebrew people, however we're saying it.
And, well, yes, and before, hey, Louis, and before. So right from Adam all the way. Yeah.
That's what I said, the 3,000 years, that was that 3 years. And then in the fourth year, what did he say? I'm going to cut them down. I'm going to throw them out. What did he do with them? And then he came, and then then we have the new way in the fifth year, or our way after the cross. That's what I saw in that. I went, oh my goodness, that's a picture of the Jewish people. Like to me, that was what I saw, of their history, let's just say. That's what I saw.
And you know, this picture of the fig tree is given in Zechariah as Yasharel being the fig tree, the untimely figs, the figs, and you know, so the fig tree that drops its figs. It's not fruitful. It's not good enough for people to consume. You know, and then we can take it even further. Is when Yahusha actually curses the fig tree. Yeah. Remember when he comes to Jerusalem and he curses it to its roots, and he says, and it wasn't even time for figs. That's the strange thing, because he goes to the fig tree and he says, where's the figs? But it wasn't the season for figs. But yet he curses it to the roots. So that's a very funny action. But if you take it into consideration of being Yasharel, of being the Mosaic law, of being whatever comes before him, the Messiah, then you understand that this law was not fulfilling enough. It was not powerful enough to save. And that is the blessing that he's given us, right? To live in it.
That can sort of tie into the woman at the well, where she says, we worship on this mountain and you worship on that mountain. And he says, it's coming a day when you're not going to worship on either mountain. Ties right into that.
Yeah, absolutely. David.
I'm going to step out on the water here a little bit. When Moshe wasn't able to pass over into the promised land. So, but then we see him on the Mount of Transfiguration talking with Mashiach and the witnesses of that, which is really after he crossed over. And I believe that's after the dispute with the devil over the body of Moshe. We have to have a crossing over in the reading of Moshe that into the mind of Messiah to get a hold of the Torah in a way that is discerned in the new man. And so that crossing over for us is a big deal for the Kedoshim in the reading of the Torah, because it's spiritually discerned, whereas on the other side of the Ardennes, before it crossed over, they didn't have any way to do that. There was just a small remnant that were able to hear the voice of Yahuwah and not feel like they're fixing to die. So in that respect, there's a special understanding of Torah that is spiritually discerned, that brings us to the edification process of maturity, the maturity of being able to skillfully handle the word of Yahuwah. That skillful handling of the word of Yahuwah is certainly not our esteem, it's his in us. But that promise is to all of us. And can we limit that? Well, I know I have. But my request is to not limit it. My request is for all things are possible to those who believe. Well, how big is that? All things are possible. I got to stretch out my cords, lengthen my and stretch out to be able to leave you to grow into that new man that he has set before us. He's set before us an immense promise to grow into the priests, the members of his assembly on the mountain, on his mountain, that are able to do what he says do, say what he says say, and that's what brings the great crowd to the bond of the covenant with wrath poured out. That's what brings that empowerment of his Kedoshim is so intensely powerful that our crossing over into that is such a privilege. We just thank Yahuwah for that. Thank Yahuwah for this assembly. Thank you, Andrea, for your help. And that's all I got for now. I appreciate your time letting me talk.
Yeah, no, great. Thank you, David. I appreciate that. Sorry, I've just got dogs running in and out this house. It becomes a bit of a menagerie around. Anyway, so and then verse 26, he shall not eat anything with the blood, neither shall he use enchantment or practice sorcery. So, here we see now once again, right? This is everything that the nations that were before Yasharel did. And what was their curse? They were kicked out of it says their land kicked them out, because it is Yah's way. It's already written in his, I remember James and we did a program and we brought in, I think it was on Hebrews, and then we brought in Enoch 69, where there was a oath called Beaker, And that is an oath that is put there before time began here on earth. But it's a law. It's one of Yah's statutes. So it kept on reminding me, because he remembers, he reminds Yasharel about 3 or 4 times in this portion to stay in my statutes, walk in my paths, because that is the path of security. That is the path that will keep you safe and prospering. Now, we've got a choice to walk in whatever path we want to. That's the choice that he's given us. Do you remember that one, James? You remember that study we did?
Yeah, I do. I want to go back and refresh on it now that you brought that up, because that is a very interesting topic. And, you know, it being one of his statutes to be commanded to guard and to honor, uphold, you know, it is important. It matters.
Yeah. You know, so even though these laws were written to Yasharel to remind them, that was the Levitical system, to remind them of the things that they had forgotten. These laws were already there for everyone. So when, for example, the Dark Ages happen and people have no word to stand on because it's been hidden and been taken away from the commoner and only given to the clergy, well, you can understand why it was called the Dark Ages, because this knowledge of prosperity, of health, of love, of living in the statutes which Yah had given us to live in, had been taken away.
Right. It was put on the outside of the ark as a witness against the people, right? You're to live up to these laws, my statutes, my commands, and if not, this is a witness against you. And as it says in chapter 20 here, if you don't abide by those, you will be vomited out too. Just like the nations before you, Yah has his rules. We can either live up to them, try to do our best to abide by them, or we will be vomited out, right?
Yeah, right. I think just for, you know, I want to read a little bit of this Enoch 69, just because for interest's sake, for those that do not have this book, maybe that might stumble across this section, that they can sort of just reflect and maybe even go and read it if they so wish. So it says here in verse 19 of Enoch 69, it says, this is the number of the cuspel in principal part of the oath, which Elyon, dwelling in glory, revealed to the holy ones. Its name is Beacon. He spoke to holy Michael to discover unto them the sacred name, that they might understand that secret name, and thus remember the oath, and that those who pointed out every secret thing to the children of men might tremble at that name and oath. This is the power of that oath, for it is powerful and it is strong, and established this oath of Akai by instrumentality of the holy Michael. These are the secrets of the oath. By it they were confirmed. Heaven was suspended by it before the world was made forever. By it the earth being founded upon the flood, while from the concealed parts of the hills the agitated waters proceed forth from the creation to the end of the world. By this oath, the sea has been formed and the foundation of it. During the period of its fury, he established the sand against it, which continues unchanged forever. I'm not going to carry on reading from here. I'd just like to carry on from a little bit further. It's verse 38. It says, and They blessed and glorified and exalted because of the name of the son of Adam was revealed to them. And he sat upon the throne of his glory, and the principal part of the judgment was assigned to him, the son of Adam. Sinners shall disappear and perish from the face of the earth, while those who seduce them shall be bound with chains forever. So that's just a part of Enoch 69. If it grips you in any way, then go and read it. It is quite interesting. Okay, so then you will not make cuttings, verse 28 of 19, you shall not make any cuttings in your flesh for the dead, nor print any marks upon you. I am Yahweh. Do not prostitute your daughter to cause her to be a whore, lest the land fall to whoredom and the land become full of wickedness. We realize that happened quite a bit after these warnings were given. Verse 30, and he shall guard my Sabbath and reverence my sanctuary. I am Yahweh. So here we can go to Ezekiel 20:12. Well, we're talking now about the Sabbath day. And it's an interesting topic and one that we can't overlook because it is the foundation of why we are Torah believers. It says in verse 12, moreover, I also gave them my Shabbatot. Right? That's Yah speaking. That's his Sabbaths. To be a sign between me and them, that they might know that I am Yahweh, that sanctify them. But the house of Yasharel rebelled against me in the wilderness, and they walked not in my statutes, and they despised my judgments, which if a man do, he shall even live in them. And if my Sabbath they greatly polluted, then I said, I will pour out my fury upon them in the wilderness to consume them. But I wrought for my name's sake that it should not be polluted before the heathen, in whose sight I brought them out. Yeah, that just shows me the grace and the mercy that Yah has. You know, that even though they went against Yah so much that it caused him and vexed him, he said, you know what, I'm not going to destroy these people. I'm going to persist with them because my name rests upon them. And I've showed the rest of the world, so to speak, I've showed them my power through these people moving into their lands and chasing them out because of their sin. So, you know, how much more will he do for us as well, even now in this time? You know, and I think that's consolation that we have to bring right now, because we know as a chosen people, we're sitting in a hard time. It's a hard time and it's a hard place. But Yah is in control. Revelation 9, obviously 4, verse 4 talks about this as well, because it says, do not hurt any green thing of the field until I have sealed those in their forehead. Right? So what is the seal? The seal is the Sabbath. The seal is those people who are living by his statutes, who are trying to live according to what he wants through his will, not ours. And obviously through his power. So he actually gives it to us as well. And then Exodus 31:13, which I think we can just quickly go to before we go back to David. Speak also unto the children of Yasharel, saying, truly my Sabbath ye shall guard, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that he may know that I am Yahweh Mikadishkim, which is to sanctify. Okay, so his sanctification comes from his will in our lives by keeping Sabbath. Very important. David?
Okay, that one of the most exciting chapters to me and all of what's written is Ezekiel chapter 20. And it right on what you're talking about, Chris. It has to do with it really has a tremendous amount to do with us as his anointed to bring the great crowd. And that verse 35 is always just a key point in to me in Ezekiel chapter 20. But all of Ezekiel chapter 20 is about it. And that 35 is if I can get my eyes focused on it, is if you wouldn't mind reading it, Chris, I'd appreciate that. Verse 35 in chapter 20. Here it is. I got it. And I will bring you into the wilderness of the people, and there will plead with you face to face, like I pleaded with you in your
like
fathers.
I pleaded with you with your fathers in the wilderness in the land of Mitzrayim, so I will plead with you, says Adonai Yahweh, and I will cause you to pass under the rod, and I will bring you into the bond of the covenant. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Oh, now that is he's talking to the Kedoshim are the ones that declare this news to the great crowd. They come to the brightness of the rising of the Kedoshim. And in that anointing, they are standing, the Kedoshim are his feet upon the earth. And the earth is becoming Yahushua's footstool. And hallelujah, and the great crowd are brought to the bond of the covenant in the time of wrath being poured out. Are we in that time? Not yet. We're not in that time yet. We're approaching it rapidly, and we're being groomed to do what he's called us to do. Hallelujah. How exciting is that? It's so exciting. I get really worked up about all that. Thank you for that opportunity to speak.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, David, for speaking. So let's carry on then to verse 31. Regard not them that have familiar spirits, neither seek after wizards to be defiled by them. I am Yahweh Elohim. And I think that talks once again to what are these people that have come before us, that have been driven out of their own lands. You know, this is what they're going by. This is their familiar spirits. This is their whoredom that Yasharel followed after these Elohim, which Yah had already cast out before them. But yet they still willing to conform and follow these. It's quite a remarkable. And I'm not placing judgment on Yasharel. Please don't get me wrong here, because we probably would have done exactly the same thing, right? I mean, they just a people. They are people that erred a lot in their ways, but they did not have what we have. They did not have the Messiah yet. So reject not the Messiah. That's, you know, to us that are Torah keepers. Please never reject the Messiah. Never think that the Messiah is not important and the Torah is more important. That is not true. Right. The Messiah cannot be divorced from the Torah, ever, ever, ever. You shall rise up before the gray head and honor and honor the face of the old man and fear your Elohim. I am Yahweh. And if a stranger sojourn with you in your land, ye shall not vex him. But the stranger that dwells with you, He shall be unto you as one born among you, and you shall love him as yourself, for he was strangers in the land of Mitzrayim. I am Yahweh Elohim. You
Right.
shall do
So
no unrighteousness in judgment.
we need to talk
John.
just a little bit about that, Chris. I think
Yes,
this is
please,
such an
John.
important
Yes.
picture here. So we're told right here, we are to love him as yourself. For you were foreigners in the land of Mitzrayim, right?
Mhm.
So when we go back to verse 9, when you reap the harvest of your land, you are not to reap the very edge of your field or gather the gleanings of your harvest. You must not strip your vineyard bare or gather its fallen grapes. Leave them for the poor and the foreign resident. I am Yahweh, your Elohim. Then when we go to Leviticus 23, and this is very critical, I think, in verse 22, when you reap the harvest of your land, you are not to reap all the way to the edge of your field or gather the gleanings of your harvest. Leave them for the poor and the foreign resident. I am Yahweh. This is between the spring and the fall feasts here in Leviticus 23. This is referring then to the Gentiles. This is referring to the foreign resident coming in. So this is this picture that I think we need to try. And I mean, how do we do this? How do we, since we're not farming necessarily to the edge of our field, everything is done kind of different. How do we leave the gleanings then? So that we can help other people? How do we do that in such a way that gives them the respect of going out and doing the gleaning, but it's also us not over harvesting, not being greedy, not taking everything for ourselves? There's got to be a way for us in this modern age to do it. I'm not exactly sure how. I've heard different ideas and theories out there, but how do we do it? I think this is a question that we need to seriously consider in our heart. How do we do that for those around us?
You know, John, funny you mentioned this, because this is interesting to me, because we are now dealing with a part in between Passover and Pentecost, right? What happens between Passover and Pentecost that we have forgotten about? The second Passover.
Right.
What is the second Passover for? Those that are sojourning far away from Jerusalem, those that cannot make it or unclean. Right? So here we have a situation of, well, okay, let's leave a certain part for these people. Let's leave for the Gentiles. You guys have received the word from Moshe. But there's another crowd that's going to come in, that a certain portion of this belongs to them. Don't take everything for yourselves. Don't hide it. Don't hide the word. Don't take it to yourself and not give it out freely. Because this is the spiritual part of this gleaning and planting and harvest time and seed time and harvest, is there's enough. There's enough for everyone. And I think that's quite an important part for us to think about. Because, you know, once it comes here, it says, regard not them. Sorry. 33. And if a stranger sojourns with you in your land, do not vex him. Right. Well, it's the same for us. It's the same for us, because now we've been given something freely. So freely we must give. Right. Freely we must give. I think that sort of correlates to what you were saying.
Oh, and it does. And I was thinking of that very thing this morning too, as I read through that, and have thought of it before. But look at the anger and the animosity that all the people have in America towards those coming over the border, right? Well, why are they coming here? It's not just because of our government is open. No, they're coming here for a better way of life. They're coming here because some are hungry. They're coming here for a multitude of reasons. Are we to be angry with them because they actually want to have food on their table? Are we to be angry with them because they want to flee an oppressive government? although they're coming into one that's just as bad, but that part is immaterial. You know, why should we hold hostility towards them? And I think it's very important that we double check ourselves and say, wait a minute, you know, don't you be holding hostility to them, because we're actually all sojourners in this land. This land is not our home, right? Our home is coming. And that's, to me, I always think that's part of that picture, that of you were sojourners in that land. Well, that's the New Testament application once again.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. But think of it this way as well. America has gone astray from here.
Mhm.
America has put in some weird stuff, and some
Right.
weird stuff is
And
going
so we're
on.
going to be vomited out. And how did he do it? He brought in other people groups to do it. That's what's happening once again. Right. I get the picture. Yeah, it's the reality.
So, you know, and listen, it's happening all over the world. It's not America only.
Right.
It's happening all over the world. You shall be ruled by a people you know not.
Mhm.
You know, what's happening in Europe? The birth rate amongst the local people is so low that by 2030, the Muslim population will have taken over. That's the statistics, right?
Right.
So what are we doing?
That was a great plan that they developed years ago, right? They're telling the Christians, they told them, oh, you shouldn't have more than 2 children. You shouldn't. Why was that the case? When Yah told us, see, we listened to the wrong people. Yah said, go and multiply, create families, build an environment for me. But we disobeyed once again, didn't listen to him and his word. So he allowed something else to come in, and it's the very same thing as the sojourner, right?
Yeah.
Because we didn't listen.
Yeah. Yep. So, I mean, the whole world is doing this. So we've got to get back. We've got to be the light of the world. Now, I don't think we're ever going to get to the Besorah portion, which is a pity. But
I'll be quiet.
Sorry.
I'll be quiet.
No. Look, it's what Yah wants, right? We're talking about the Torah portion, which is good. So let's. Sorry, David. You carry on.
Now that we're set apart, I don't believe to be included in the ways of the world at all. That we're in the world, but we're not of it. And in that being not of it, the world hates us because we're not of it. And really, it's going to focus on not letting that happen. But he who dwells in the secret place, that's where we got to abide, is in his secret place. Does the devil, the ruler of this world, and the dominance of all these people that he's controlling, have the authority to lay hands on Messiah, on his body? We certainly wouldn't want to submit to that, if I wouldn't believe. But we want to dwell in his secret place and abide in his shadow. It was our refuge and our fortress. And in him we put all our trust. Hallelujah. Be raised up into the fullness that he's called us to be raised up into. And put the dominion of the darkness under he's going to put the dominion under Yahushua's feet. Now we got to realize that in a body on the earth were his feet. And that all of those enemies are going to be put under his feet. Now, who are we now if we're not the assembly of the last Adam, Yahushua HaMashiach? Hallelujah. Now we got to get a hold of how much dominion that is he's imparting to us as his members. Now it's no longer I that lives, but Messiah that lives in me. Now, how big is that? Hallelujah. Oh, I get so excited. I didn't mean to just jump in there, but we're talking on an area that we've got to be completely set apart and completely realizing who we are now. It's not who we're going to be. We're being made into a new creation that is now the devil is fighting against. He's fighting against us. And he's going to turn and make war with the remnant of the seed of the woman that has the testimony of Yahusha. Who's that? That's the Kedoshim. It's the Kedoshim that he's going to focus on fighting. Now, when he does that, you can send his saddle home. Hallelujah.
Amen. Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Verse 35. And he shall do no unrighteousness in judgment, in measured weight, in measure. Just balances, just weights, just ephah, just hin shall he have. I am Yahweh Elohim, who's brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim. Therefore shall he guard my statutes, all my judgments, and do them. I am Yahweh. Once again, you know, it's throughout these two chapters, we see this cyclical thought pattern of the Hebraic way coming through, because it's always a cyclical. It comes back. Guard my statutes. Guard my statutes. It takes a turn. It goes and it tells a couple of things in different ways, but the same message. And then it comes back to guard my statute. So, you know, once something else that we've got to think about. And Yahweh spoken to Moshe, saying again, and say to the children of Yasharel, whosoever be of the children of Yasharel, or of the strangers that sojourn with you in Yasharel, that gives any of his seed unto Molech, he shall surely be put to death. The people of the land shall stone him with stones, and I will set my face against that man, and will cut him off from amongst his people, because he has given of his seed unto Molech, to defile my sanctuary and to profane my holy name. And if the people of the land do anyways hide their eyes from the man, when he gives of his seed unto Molech, and kill him not, then I will set my face against that man and against his family, and I will cut him off, and that all will go a-whoring after him to commit whoredom with Molech from among their people. Now, this is, John, I think what we were discussing earlier on amongst the nations of the world. We are turning a blind eye to what the leaders are doing. We are not wanting to know. We are not caring what they're doing. We are just saying, oh, well, listen, we're just carrying on with our own lives. But we have a duty. We have a duty to bring this to the fore and to say, not in my name, not in my Yah's name, not in my Creator's name, not in this body whom he has given to me for a tabernacle to house his name, to house his Ruach Elohim. We will not stand for this nonsense. But we don't. We keep silent. We've kept silent all along when they're aborting babies. We've kept silent all along when they're doing horrible things and abominations unto children, to teach them to do stupid things like sexual transformations at the age of 6 and 9, and I don't even know what. It's sick to Yahweh, and we can't expect to live in his blessing if we just keep silent about it. And I think it's time now for us to start screaming this from the tops. And I see people are starting to do that. People are starting to do that. I see in the multimedia, people are starting to say, no, that's enough. We've had enough of this. So I'm hoping there is this reality coming to the fore now. I see.
And I think you're on there Chris, that we need to take our stand. I think Ezekiel 9 with the inkhorn going through and putting the mark. Well, the ones who got the mark of Yah were the ones who looked upon that and said, this is an abomination. This is not right. Right? It's the same thing with Romans 1. Who's taking a stand and say, we will not do that? The very end of Romans 1, it says, not only do they do it, but they applaud those who do these things. So but we're in the time frame of Laodicea, and this is such an important picture here of this last church time frame, because in 320, Revelation 3:20, in that group, in that church, Yahushua says, behold, I stand at the door and knock. Whoever hears my voice and opens the door, I will come and eat with him and he with me. That's the marking of the inkhorn in the last days. He's willing to do that. We're in, as David just talked about, we're in the world, not of the world. We're to be trying to do our best to be a set apart people group, right? Are we going to be a set apart nation singly here in the United States or in South Africa or in Canada? No. This is to the individual now that he's calling us out. This is to the individual that he's saying, you put your mark on us. You take your stand, and some of us are going to die for taking that stand, as it says in Revelation 13. Those who are destined for captivity, into captivity they go. Those who are destined to die by the sword they're going to die, right? This is not this thing that we're viewing here. I think this is exactly the time frame that we're seeing, Chris, is we're watching this happen right now, and we are to be called apart, just as David was speaking.
Yeah, I think that's 100%, John. You know, and this is why I really would have liked to get to the Besorah portion, because it talks about the blind, right? It talks about, as Andrea was saying earlier on, and it talks about the blind man that was stuck there, and Yahusha makes, if you will, eyeballs and puts it into his eyes, and he says, go and wash.
Right. Well, why don't we go there? I just have one other thing. We don't have to read the rest of 20 if you don't, unless you want
All
to.
right. Okay.
But the very last part of chapter 20 is something I'd like to address.
Okay.
It says, pardon?
Please do.
It says, I have set up these apart as unclean for you. This is very important. I'm not going to read all of that. You are to be holy because I am holy. I, Yahweh, am holy, and I have set you apart from the nations as mine. Now, when we go to 2 Corinthians 6, I'll start, you could read earlier on, but I'll start reading in verse 16. And what agreement does Yah's sanctuary have with idols? This is exactly what we're talking about, idolatry, whoredom. For we are the sanctuary of the living Elohim, and he has said, I will dwell among them, I will walk among them, I will be their Elohim, and they will be my people. Therefore, come out from among them, be separate, says Yahweh. Do not touch any unclean thing, and I will welcome you. I will be a father to you, and you will be sons and daughters to me, says Yahweh. Therefore, dear friends, since we have such promises, let us cleanse ourselves from every impurity of the flesh and the Ruach, completing our sanctification in the fear of Yahweh. This is New Testament, taking right back to Leviticus 18, 19, 20, 21. All of this is included for the way that we're to walk. We are to be clean. We're to be holy. Touch no unclean thing. This is such a picture that we are to live up to. You know, that's the time frame that we're in. We're to live this lifestyle so that when other people look at us, just as David said, yeah, they're gonna hate us, but that's okay. That's what Yahushua said. If they hate you for my name or for living up to my ways, let them do it, because you're doing your job then. So that's all I had to say about that.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you very much. I'm just trying to get to the Torah, the Besorah portion. Does anybody have it there?
I don't have it right in front
It
of me.
is Luke. I believe it's Luke 13. All right. But we want to go quickly because we don't have too much time. We want to go to, sorry, it's not Luke. I think it was in John. It was John chapter. Anybody got it there?
I don't know. Gabriella sent like 20 of them.
Here we go. John chapter 9. Let's just go to John chapter 9. I want to read. Sorry, I was doing the portion out of the parashat, right, out of this other book. So yeah, sorry if it's not the same, but this talks to what Andrea was talking, and I think this is important to see, because Yahusha here, if he first of all, if we can go back, we go to verse to chapter 8. He's talking about here in verse 34. Yahusha answered him, Amen, amen, saying to you, whosoever commits a sin is a servant of sin, and a servant abides not in the house forever, but the Son abides forever. Now he's talking to the scribes and the Pharisees, right? So he says, they say in verse 33, they say, we are of Avram's seed, but we were never in bondage to any man. How say you, he shall be made free? Well, they were saying, okay, well, we are of Abraham's seed. They're actually admitting that they weren't Levites because Levi was in bondage. So what they're saying is, they're saying, well, we were of Abraham's seed, but we were never in bondage. So they were usurpers to this priesthood because they wanted power and wealth, like everybody else, right? So it says, Amen, amen, I say to you, whosoever commits sin is a servant of sin, and the servant abides not in the house forever, but the Son abides forever. If the Son therefore make you free, you shall be free indeed. Know ye that ye are of Abraham's seed, but ye seek to kill me because my word has no place in you. So that's the same as Esau. Right? Esau was denying his birthright. Esau was not just denying his birthright, he was going against his parents, which is what we just read in the parashat part in Leviticus. So you do not honor your parents, you go against them. What happens then? Sin befalls you because you forget what sin is. It's a spiritual thing that cannot be discerned by the flesh. You just seem to drift away from Yah's ways. It says, live in my ways so that you can have life. Okay, so a little bit further on, he says, you are of your father the devil, in verse 44. He was a murderer from the beginning and abode not in the truth, because there was no truth in him. And when he speaks a lie, he speaks of a lie, he speaks of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. So now we see, okay, well, this is interesting because this is the devil. Because in verse 49, it says, I have not a devil, but I honor my father, and he do dishonor me. So here, Yahusha is saying he honors his father. It's a principle that we have to keep. It's a principle that we keep to live in his way. We honor our parents. So later on in in chapter 9, in the beginning it says here, and Yahusha passed by and he saw a man which was blind from his birth. Now, if we read Isaiah, there's too many scriptures. You can go and Google blind in Isaiah, and it comes up with about 10 scriptures. But Isaiah 29, verse 18, John, if you can read 35:5, and maybe James, if you can read.
You want me to read Isaiah 35:5?
Yes, Isaiah 35:5, and James, maybe you can read 42:7, and I'll read 29:18. So
Okay,
29:18.
Isaiah 35:5. The eyes of the blind shall be opened, and the ears of the deaf shall be unstopped.
Right. 29:18 says, and in that day shall the deaf hear the words of the Sefer, and the eyes of the blind shall see out of obscurity and out of darkness. And then James 42:7.
42:7 says, to open the blind eyes, to bring out the prisoners from the prison, and them that sit in darkness out of the prison house.
Right. So my point about this whole thing is that this blind man was sitting in the porch. He was sitting outside the gates of this synagogue. And often he would hear these words. He knew this scripture very well. And if we read a bit further, we see that his mom and dad still had a relationship with him. They said, yes, this is our son. And he said, well, these are my parents, right? So what does a good mother say to your son if they're born blind? Well, she will give them the hope of this coming Messiah, or this coming time when the blind will see. Isn't that so? You will tell your child this because you give them hope to live. And now eventually this child receives this blessing of sight. He has got no doubt in his mind who this person is that healed him of this blindness. Am I right?
Right.
I mean, this is not a doubt to him. So let's go a little bit further, and we can read a little bit here. Verse 16, it says, therefore said some of the Parashim, this man is not of Yahweh because he guards not the Sabbath.
Right.
Well, there we go. There's a stone. If we've ever seen the scribes and the Pharisees throwing stones, you want to throw the truth out of the word, right? But you're not giving a man bread. You're throwing a stone, right? When Yahushua says, which one of you shall, if you ask bread, will give me a stone, or give your friend a stone? Well, don't give them stones to hurt them out of the word. Give them bread that nourishes them.
Right. But
Okay.
I think you got to back up to verse 4 though, Chris, because that ties into this. I must work the works of him that sent me while it is day. Night comes when no man can work. And we're coming into the darkness, right? So
We have
night
another
is
one.
coming when no man
But
can
I
work.
won't go to that one.
As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. So
Heather?
important for us to get this.
Heather?
Oh, you know what
Something
that
to
is?
say?
No, it's not. I just reuse the bottle. Oh,
Heather, you got something to say?
Oh, she's muted. Yeah.
Oh,
She did.
okay.
Okay.
Sorry, John.
So that's this picture though. We just talked about that, of the days, the time of Laodicea. And now we come right in here. Night is coming when no man can work. And what do? They blame Yahusha for doing good on Shabbat, right? And there's another passage where he says, isn't it right that I should free the woman, right, from the grips of Satan?
Mm-hmm.
And he does that on Shabbat. He rose on Shabbat to free the world from the grip of Satan.
Yes.
Think of that.
Yes. And I mean, look what he says in verse 6. And when he had thus spoken, he spat on the ground and made clay from the spittle and anointed the eyes of the blind with clay. Well, what did he make Adam out of?
Clay, right?
So what is he doing? It's another way of saying, I am.
Mm-hmm.
I'm creating something out of clay, and I'm restoring the blind. This was a miraculous occasion, because he wasn't just restoring one man's sight. He was restoring the sight of the world.
Which takes us back to Andrea's point, right?
That's right. That's right.
The deaf, the blind, right? Are we putting stumbling blocks in front of the blind so
Right.
that they can't see the truth? Or are we doing it in love, which was really kind of the focus of the passage, right? Do
Amen.
everything
Amen.
out of love.
Amen. And I
What
think
an
that
awesome
is what
portion.
probably, David, I'm going to give you a chance. I'm going to keep quiet for a while.
What John's saying, I'm just getting excited about, and what you're saying, I'm excited about. When he says, I didn't come to bring peace on the earth, but a sword. And what does he divide? He divides your house. And I know John's experienced that. I've experienced that. Does that mean we got to give up on our house? No. We don't want to give up on our house because his promise is that my whole house will be saved. I just experienced some of that return with my daughter. Hallelujah. Now, when he says that, who is my mother and my brother? But those that guard his commandments. We're going to know who who's with him and who's not with him. So in that, does that mean that we are not to have that sword? No, it's the sword of his word that's going to divide correctly, even to the discerning of, the thoughts and intents of the heart. That mankind is going to have a hard time giving up his authority and dominion. But when we look at the 149th Psalm, Tehillim, it talks about this right is given to all the Kedoshim. To do what? To bind their sovereigns with chains. Well, who are their sovereigns? I believe it's the ones that are twice dead that are controlling them, the powers and principalities of the darkness. Mm-hmm. And when those things are bound, what happens? Well, what happened at the Feast of Weeks was they were convicted in their hearts. And they said, well, now what are we going to do? We see our condition. And they were told what to do. They were brought to the bond of the covenant. It's a preview. It's a preview for the great harvest of the wheat, the nations of the earth. He said he was going to lift the covering that covers their minds. What happens then? They're convicted in their hearts. At least the ones that don't harden their hearts and are lost. Mm. But there is evidently a great crowd that comes to the bond of the covenant in the camps all over the world when wrath is poured out. Mm-hmm. Now that wrath, I know, is the last 42 months. It begins at halfway through the year. I know that. I don't have to doubt it. I know that the first 42 months begins at Abib and ends halfway through at trumpets, and begins again and ends at Abib, at the day spring from on high. And that's when it comes with all of the set apart ones from all of the camps to establish the temple for the earth, for that 1,000-year reign. Hallelujah. Now, amen. We're coming to that midnight hour, and we're coming to that great distress. And that great distress brings the bond of the covenant to the great crowd by the sent 144,000 sent to do what? To bring that present to Yahuwah that's talked about in Yeshayahu 18 by the tall and smooth skinned that never have been seen before nor never shall be seen again. Why? Because there's only going to be a remnant on the mountain forever with Yahuwah, with Yahusha. There's only going to be a remnant forever on the mountain with Yahusha. Now, that privilege is to the Kedoshim. We certainly desire that privilege. Hallelujah. Amen. Because we've committed to that. Hallelujah. Thank you for this opportunity to hear. I just love talking about it.
Yeah, amen.
Lord-
Amen. I
I'm a
agree,
Lord.
David. So I just want to get through this before we have to say goodbye, because I think there's quite a nice lesson here as well, just a little bit further. Because in verse 20, it says his parents answered them. This is where before they were now the Yahudim 18. The Yahudim did not believe concerning him that he had been blind and received sight until they called the parents of him that had received his sight. And they asked him, and asked them, saying, "Is this your son, who you say was born blind? How then does he now see?" His parents answered them and said, "We know that this is our son, and that he was born blind. But by what means he now sees, we know not. Or who it has opened his eyes, we know not. He is of age, ask him, he shall speak for himself." Well, isn't this us? Isn't this I don't want to be kicked out of my group. I don't want to be kicked out of my church. I don't want to be kicked out of my club. I don't want to be kicked out of my family. I don't want to be kicked out of my friendship circle. Why not? Because I don't want to talk about my conviction. Maybe, I'm just saying that, but you know what? We have to, because if it's not us, it's held against us. So we have to open our mouths. We have to open up and speak the truth. So this truth, it says here, so it says, and again they called the man that was blind, and they said, give Elohim the praise. And now they're testing this, right? Is this because you can't give Elohim praise if you don't believe in Elohim, right? They know that. And we know that this man is a sinner. And he answered and he said, "Whether he be a sinner or no, I know not. One thing I know, that whereas I was blind, now I see." He knew the scriptures. He knew that this must be from Yah. Then he says, and they said again unto him, "What did he to you? How opened he your eyes?" And he answered them, and he said, "I told you already." He did not hear. Wherefore would he hear it again? Will he also be his Talmudim? He's asking them a question. Will you also be his disciple if I tell you again what happened to me? Because Isaiah says that the blind will see. It's pretty simple to this man. He's not like, he doesn't want to go into a huge debate about this. He knows the truth. He knows the word. And they reviled him. They said to him, "You are his Talmudim, but we are Moshe's Talmudim." Right? There we go again with the Torah believers. Okay, and I'm not saying that we are such. I'm just saying, I'm not saying that we're not Torah believers. I'm just saying that we have to be better than this, right? We have to be better. He says, "We know that Yahweh spoken to Moshe for his fellow. We know not from whence he is." The man answered and said unto them, "Why herein he marvel this thing, that he know not from whence he is? And yet he has opened my eyes. Now we know that Yahweh hears not sinners, but if any man be a worshipper of Yah and does his will, him he hears. Since the world began, it was not heard that any man opened the eyes of one that was born blind." Once again, he knew the scriptures. He was preaching to the guys that were supposed to be preaching these scriptures.
Right, which then takes us to John, right? John says, are you the one to come? And what's Yahushua's answer? The blind see, the deaf hear, and the dead are raised.
Right.
Fulfillment of scripture.
Right. So it says here in verse 35, Yahushua heard that they had cast him out, and when he found him, and he said unto him, "Do you believe the Son of Elohim?" And he answered him, he said, "Who is he, Adonai, that I might believe on him?" And Yahusha said unto him, you have both seen him, and it is he that talks with you. And he said, Adonai, I believe. And he worshipped him. And Yahusha said, for judgment I have come into the world, that they which see not might see, and they which see might be made blind. Right? That's Isaiah. Right?
Powerful.
And some of the parashim that were with him heard these words and said unto him, are we blind also? Still don't understand. And Yahusha said unto them, if he were blind, he should have no sin. But now that he say we see, therefore your sin remains. Isn't that so deep? You know, and once again, John, you come to Laodicea, you say Laodicean church, well, what does it say in Revelation 3? I counsel you to buy from me gold refined in fire, white linen to hide your nakedness, right? And eye salve so that you may see.
Exactly.
And what does Yahusha say? He says to those, he says, blessed is the man that sees me not and yet believes. Now these guys see.
They're no longer blind, right? They're no longer blind. I once was blind, but now I see.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. And we and we can all say that right now today. We were all blind, but we see because of the grace of him who has called us unto his name, unto his kindred. We are Yasharel. We are of his seed. We have been called by him. We have been given a new name. We are part of his kingdom. Let us live in it, and let us not forsake his statutes. Let us live in his Sabbath, and let us guard him in our hearts to be primary, the first, the utmost, never letting go, never letting go. Let us hold on. Let us be steadfast.
Right. And what does Paul say in 1 Corinthians 13, right? I see through a glass darkly, then I will see face to face, right?
Hallelujah,
so even
hallelujah,
though our blindness is partially revealed, there's still so much clarity to come.
Hallelujah. David, I would love you to close in prayer. We've got about 2 minutes or so.
Hey, I'd love to. Abba Yahuwah, our Elohim, we want to thank you for all that you have done in us and are going to do. We thank you that we've asked to be single-minded. We ask, and we know that you'll cause that to happen because that is your will. And in that single-mindedness, you have dominion and esteem. Only you. And we set ourselves to be of one shoulder and one mind, and to not let there be any division amongst your Kedoshim. We pray for unity of your Kedoshim all over this earth, so that we come into one accord and one mind and one shoulder. We love you, and we don't want to let there be any divisions. Show us, anoint us to walk in that. To also not let that woman Isabel have a place to teach your people. Anoint us in this armor. We thank you for these promises, Abba Yahuwah, and for this maturity of your Kedoshim and growing us up into all you've called us to be. We have confidence in that, in you, that good work that you've begun in us, you are going to finish it. Hallelujah. And we want to thank you in Yahusha's name for this gathering, this assembly of the Kedoshim. We want to thank you for all that you're doing and praise you always in Yahushua HaMashiach's name. Amen, amen.
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 Amen. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everyone. Thank you.
Shabbat shalom.
Hallelujah.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat